Hey guys, happy Heat Wave Wednesday. Welcome to Stone Soup Poetry. Thanks to Edward Galt, who's been using the same winter background since he first joined the Zoom calls in 2021. He's turned the temperature down he's turned the temperature down for us significantly, so we appreciate that. I feel 5 degrees cooler. So thank you very much for that, and thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. And hopefully more things are going to be announced as I get myself back into the groove. And I have at least one feature I want to put in for August and announce. And you guys have sent me a couple of recommendations I want to follow through on. So more news is coming. But tonight we have an itch to scratch from Old Scratch Press. Gabby Gilliam with her brand new book, No Ocean to Spit Me Out, which I didn't order yet because I didn't want it to sit on the doorstep and potentially get swiped from my house. But it will be coming. It will be at my doorstep hopefully by this weekend. And I recommend you grab it after you listen to her work tonight. And I'm always happy to welcome someone from the Old Scratch crew. And I thank Robert Fleming for helping to set this up. And I thank everyone for coming here and not forgetting completely about Stone Soup because we were gone a week. You know, my biggest fear. And I want to get things started quickly and right. And I want to get to go through the Ramdinator 5000. And surprisingly, the person who is usually closer to the middle or the end of the open mic is, oh, for asking where did Chadford go? Usually when I mean parts unknown, it could mean a staycation or it could mean another country. I spent last week in the Cape and actually camping for 10 days and spending time on the beaches and the campsites and the actual streets of Provincetown. So it was very warm and rain free until the second to last day. And we had some amazing weather. My girlfriend is a planning genius. She planned everything down from the campsite to the drag shows that we went to on Monday, and was it Monday and Wednesday? Either way, and we actually saw Reefer Madness down there. If you haven't seen the musical Reefer Madness, it actually came out as a movie, but now they're still performing it everywhere they can, and it was pretty much a musical adaptation of the movie. Which, if you've never seen Reefer Madness, it's pure, it's pure Hearst yellow journalism era demonification of marijuana as if it's crystal meth. So it's something to behold, the musical itself, and just enjoying the sights. So props to my girlfriend for plotting that out, and it's good to be back and rusted with all our damp clothes finally washed and dried. So we're going to move on now to the first person on the open mic, which is going to be Mr. John Wizik.
Wow, I'm first. Okay. It's hard enough finding that stolen uranium, but FBI agent Claire Danforth has other problems. Her husband beats her. Her son's a neo-Nazi rent boy, and she's having an affair with her partner, Nick Amatory, who may be dirty. Here is Sledgehammer Ex Machina. Special Agent Danforth, I'm Haughty, and this is Deadpan. We're from the Office of Professional Responsibility. The agents from the FBI's version of Internal Affairs showed their badges. We'd like a word. The three entered an interview room. Danforth sat across the table from the others who had their backs to a two-way mirror. Know why we're here? Deadpan asked. No idea. Danforth kept a poker face while her insides churned like a cement mixer full of rattlesnakes. The old man's murder, blackmailing Campanella, or meeting with road rash could send her to prison. It'll go easier on you if you admit your wrongdoing. Haughty sipped bad coffee and winced as if the paper cup contained a frog smoothie. I have no idea what you're talking about, Danforth said. We've received a sexual harassment complaint. Deadpan rested his elbows on the table. Agent Paterfamilias told us you mocked him in front of colleagues, Hottie added. Yeah, Danforth said, after you drew a penis on the projector screen. If you should be investigating anybody, it's him. Ever hear of a guy named Beeman? Deadpan asked. Beeman? Danforth's breath caught in her throat like a frozen turducken. Can't say I have. What'd he do? Internal information leak, Hottie said. Don't worry. We'll track down the source. Back to the matter at hand. We still might save your career. If you enroll in a 6-week sexual harassment seminar, Deadpan added. I'm in the middle of a national security investigation, Danforth said. Millions of lives are at stake. The Bureau takes microaggressions seriously, Hottie replied. I'm Wayne, and I'm a sexual harasser, a man with a pockmarked skin said. Hello, Wayne, the group replied. Danforth watched a moth bat its head against fluorescent light while she and a dozen abusers sat in a church basement. I used to be a Hollywood producer, Wayne continued. I roofied actresses and had sex with them when they were unconscious. Excuse me, a man raised his hand. Aren't we supposed to refer to them as actors these days? Good point. Thank you, Wayne. The leader looked around the room. Do we have any newcomers? She pointed at Danforth. How about you? Tell us your name and what brings you to Harassers Anonymous. This is a misunderstanding. Some sexist at work embarrassed me with a penis drawing and reported me as after I defended myself. Sounds like victim blaming to me, one of the participants said. Yeah, the Nile ain't a river in Egypt, another added. Danforth's cell phone rang. Excuse me, I gotta take this. Claire, it's Nick. I followed Loesch and Snood to a warehouse on the east side. I'll text you the address. SWAT team's 5 minutes out. Amatori held his pistol at the ready outside the warehouse entrance. Anything could be in there. Sword-wielding BJJ fighters, Krav Maga masters with machetes, karate black belts with chainsaws, bears with Kalashnikovs, or Belgian Malinois with flamethrowers. We don't have time, Danforth drew her pistol. Let's split up. After Amatori circled the rear, Danforth entered and trained her pistol left and right. A strange whir came from farther inside. She rounded a stack of wooden crates and saw a corrugated aluminum box the size of a phone booth containing a mass of gears, flashing lights, and looked like a 1965 Dodge Darts transmission. Beside a spinning metal discs, Nixie tubes on the control panel counted down to detonation. Not so fast, Claire. Danforth's husband held a detonator the sizes of a TV remote. One push of this button, and the whole city will be a pile of radioactive slag. Ned, you're behind the theft of enriched uranium? That's right. And that neo-Nazi stuff Ned Jr. was spouting, he learned it all from you? Nuking Lincolnhurst will kick off the race war that's always been coming, Ned said. Better to fight now while we're still strong. I thought you were an unemployed loser, but I've got to say that seeing you leading a conspiracy is kind of hot. Danforth inched closer. Once this is all over, let's spend a romantic weekend in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Maybe we can stay at a bed and breakfast, preferably one with a waterbed. Danforth fired from her hip and shot the remote from Ned's hands because that's something someone who spends 15 minutes a year at a shooting range can totally do from 50 feet away. Doesn't matter. It's only a decoy. Remember that old shotgun, the one your father gave you before he died? Well, I use it to make the bomb. Ned looked at his watch. 30 minutes from now, the timer will pull the trigger and will fire a slug of enriched uranium into the rest, create a critical mass that will destroy the city. Where is it? Danforth aimed her pistol at her husband. Face down on the ground now! Drop the gun or Loverboy dies. Shielded by Amatori's body, Art Fizzler emerged from the shadows and held a pistol at her partner's head. You! That's right. I was behind it all along. The manager from the reactor assembly building pressed the barrel against Amatori's head. Now drop the gun. It's okay. Danforth set her pistol in the concrete and straightened with her hands raised. We can talk about this. Fizzler released his hostage and Amatori did a slow clap. Don't look so shocked, Claire. I was behind it all along. Sleeping with you was just a way to gain your confidence so I could sabotage the investigation from the inside. Let's just say that delivering the nuke will clear a whole lot of gambling debts and finance a nice retirement. I'm thinking of someplace tropical, Belize, Malta, or maybe even Kathmandu. Amateur drew his pistol and murdered Ned. When I found Agent Danforth under attack by terrorists, I returned fire, but I was too late to save her. See you around, Agent Danforth. Fizzler fired 2 rounds into Danforth's chest. Do you see up in smoke, good or bad? Joseph Goebbels asked. I always believed government should be small enough to strangle in a bathtub, a Belgian Malinois replied. They did our work for us. It's a tragedy! Hitler pounded his fist into his palm. How can I resurrect my 1,000-year Reich based in Toledo? But let's not dwell on current events because today we celebrate the wedding of our friend Claire Danforth. An organ played and Danforth found herself in a wedding dress while Hermann Goering walked her down the aisle toward Hitler, who wore a surplice and ecclesiastical stole. The groom in a tuxedo turned. He was her son. Danforth woke with a dry mouth and noticed the wall-mounted television tuned to Jackal News. She only realized she was in a hospital room after reaching for a cup on the nightstand and feeling the tug of an IV in her arm. A blonde woman with kind eyes entered. I'm Dr. Gibson. I removed the bullet in your left lung, so you should be able to return to work in a few days. Agents Howdy and Deadpan are waiting to see you. She turned the page in Danforth's charts. And by the way, you're pregnant. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of Sledgehammer Ex Machina.
Very well done, sir.
I request an epilogue. An epilogue, damn it. There's got to be more you can fit. Thank you so much, John. And by coincidence, the person who is up next asked to be read earlier, and the Remninator 5000 already put him down for being the next reader. Let's welcome up the Generalissimo himself. I'm glad he's back with us, Mr. Brian Franco.
Well, gracias, Mr. Is it Parento? I never know how to pronounce your name.
Whoops, it's usually pronounced Parento from my parts.
Parento.
But, you know, but it's
Okay.
there's many there,
Well, that's
in my view, there's almost no wrong way to say it.
Well, anyway, so I want to know if John Wessex has read a lot of dime novels from like the 40s and 50s. I bet he has.
Yeah, yeah, Brian too. You know what? I also went back and did a lot of Raymond Chandler, who is just wonderful, just a wonderful writer. Not maybe not so much the story, but just the observations and the wordplay.
Okay, so the first poem I'm going to read just got accepted into the New Generation Beats anthology, a treatise on the edibility of onion skins. I don't recognize who I see in the mirror. It's not the unkempt beard or the baggage under my eyes. It's the onion trapped inside my soul, unable to peel away its inedible outer layers, because my heart has been broken so many times. Its skin is made of several haphazardly wrapped layers of duct tape, frayed edges attracting emotional detritus like a lint trap in a dryer, encased in mistakes and wrong decisions, furthering inaccessibility, creating an impenetrable barrier to love and happiness that can't be breached via sad love songs or tear jerkers or ear nibbles or slow-moving fingertips. There is no Prince Charming capable of kissing away history. Munitions experts would be wasting their time with dynamite. Superman might go blind if he tried to melt it with his stare. I am resigned to accept my permanently damaged heart, beating and trying to find ways to find love despite all the duct tape and detritus that might only exist inside my mind. And then I just wrote this new one today. I guess it's a true story based on a true story. So, but it doesn't have a title yet, although that could be its title. I don't know. I have a friend who lives in a mid-century house built by the dean of architecture of a southern college who married a Japanese woman. In the expansive backyard is a small bamboo forest. I imagine they only had to plant around a dozen bamboo, and it didn't take more than 2 or 3 years till the little forest filled in. And though there is no glass or diamonds in the bamboo, the sun pushes through this ominous thicket and fits and starts as if it was passing through a fractured prism. On the edge of the bamboo forest is a small pond, which has an island created by the radiating roots of a centuries-old cypress tree. The ends of the tree's roots poke out of the soil as if they are tips of hats of garden gnomes. I believe that after midnight, after the humans fall asleep, the crickets and grasshoppers provide a bluegrass symphony so the gnomes can dance with the toads. The bamboo joins in by inhaling night air and exhaling it, creating an oboe-esque accompaniment. That afternoon, as I ate a lovely lunch of spaghetti and home-cooked sauce with garlic bread and tossed salad, I told my friend and her husband my theory about what happens after midnight in the pond. My friend responded, "Who knows?" Then her cat, who was hiding in the living room, darted across the hardwood floor to a chair next to a table on which sat a case that held a violin. And I'll just do one more piece, which is called Rocky. You were a rock when my life was a hard place. You were a grounding wire every time I tried to fly away, but I could not find myself till I lost you forever. I cannot figure out how to keep myself from flying in the wrong direction. I think I'm about to step foot on the moon when the sun burns the soles of my feet. You are made of dust and ashes, and I am afraid to fall asleep. I turn and toss like a warped bowling ball winding its way down a winding mountain road. Round and round I go, where I fall off my well-beaten path I never know. My heart refuses to slow down when I lay my head on my pillow. I take in a meditative breath. I try to empty my mind as anxiety sneaks in tidbits of tomorrow. I turn on my side only to hear pounding war drums of heartbeats permeating the mattress. My soul mourns its mate. I can no longer finish sentences. I am sentenced to life without punctuation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brian. Up next, he's got a new book coming out. Can't wait to see it. Let's welcome up Mr. Edward S. Galt and check out his work from Tuesday in oddballmagazine.com. Contributed photography for one of our recent contributing poets.
Thank you very much. This one is out of my new book. I don't think you can see it here. It's called The Sink That Ate Hyde Park. I don't think I've read this here. Okay, so it didn't eat the whole town, just a few blocks around our apartment. Still, my roommates and I had let the dishes go a while, actually quite a while. I think the two of them were eating off paper plates. I would wash my plate and utensils and take them back to my room. The plates in the sink were stacked to the top, and the aroma was beginning to drift. Nobody wanted to touch them. So finally, with rubber gloves, I transferred them to the other side, then sealed it with the lid. So we were able to move on and forget about them, which we did. Except I was having nightmares about the sink. I would see a scaly hand lift the lid and reach out for me. I would go to the bathroom at night passing the dark kitchen with the sink just out of view and hear the screams from just below the lid. I didn't dare go in. God only knew what creature had crawled up the pipes and just died there, rotting, yet still managing to howl in its misery. Unable to endure any longer, I removed the sink lid, as if from a tomb, wondering if by chance the daylight pouring in might cause whatever lurked there to molder into dust. I was not so fortunate. Every stench from the bowels of hell rose up and permeated our floor, and from our building to the rest of the town. The dishes were saturated with filth and grease. A coating of scum had melded into the walls of the sink and had to be scraped off. There was a banging at the door. Men with radiation suits evacuated me to the outskirts of the town. The block had to be cordoned off. The buildings were torn down. The area is abandoned and forgotten now. It is said that every once in a while, in a blue moon, an ill-advised traveler will pass by and hear the howls and screams from the netherworld. Even though I had helped to save the day, I was held 3 days in jail and never did get that call from the mayor offering me the key to the city. Thank you very much.
And that's why there are obsessive roommates who talk about chore wheels. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Galt.
Thank you.
And up next on this wonderful open mic, let's welcome up Mr. Mark States.
Just watch me. Streets, sidewalks, have to park cars in various shades of gray. Sunlight fades between passing gray clouds. Early fall, late afternoon on cliché hard-scrabble streets of East Oakland. This is not our neighborhood. These are not our friends, but me and my buddy drop off our bikes on the sidewalk when we're invited to game in progress. I line up as the slot receiver on the right side. Cool, because by the 7th grade, I am tired of playing center. Third down, we need 8 or 9 yards for first down, the rear bumper of a distressed Chevy. In huddle, I tell quarterback, I am going to run 7 yards, then cut left, a dig route, and if my guy bites, throw behind me a yard or two. Behind you? Yes, a yard or two. Don't worry, I'll catch it. In a dig route, the receiver runs straight as fast as they can, and at 7 yards or so, plants a foot and breaks across the field of play. I run, plant my foot, spin to left. The defender bites on the motion, intending to cut off my route and push me to the concrete if necessary. I plant foot again, spin 180 degrees, and damn it, that football is zipping in the air right where I told the quarterback to put it. Stretch to make the catch and turn up field. I know I made the first down. Never saw passing the distressed Chevy, though, sliding belly first across the concrete. You see, instead of slapping my back, the Norman touch football, the defender stuck out a leg and hockey sticked me. Again, I stretch, this time to recover my fumble, as he stands over me screaming, ain't no bleep gonna clown me like that. Right kneecap turned to oatmeal, knuckles like tree gnarls. I limp alongside bike all the way home, picking grit and pebbles out of both arms like lint out of a pocket. Fade to present day. I used to imagine this as the opening scene in a movie written by me, about me, before titles and credits, starring some up-and-coming actor, counting on this hard-luck dramatic role to prove to the critics that he's got the range and the vulnerability to pull it off, because damn it, many people tell me my life is full of interesting stories. 3 lifetimes crammed into one. I have to write a book. But why stop there? People could go to a movie, see what I saw, live through what I lived through, at least for an hour or two. Then I wipe the dirty dollar signs from my eyes and wake up to reality. Any little victory has been followed by pain. Someone or something always comes along and sticks out a foot, steals my moment in the fading sun. It's not the years, it's the mileage, as Indiana Jones said. So I write these poems instead. And you get to watch my freak show for free.
Another clinic on great writing and presentation. Another clinic.
Thank you so much, Rich. And that
It's
was
my
a
pleasure.
world premiere.
A world premiere. I love it.
Thank you,
Yes.
I
Mark.
love it.
I just wrote it a couple nights ago.
Look
So
forward to
thank
seeing
you.
you at con.
Yes.
Up next, love to welcome back Miss Jan Rowe of the Black Seed Writers Group. There you go.
Thank you. This is initially sad, then hilarious, because when I first wrote it, Artists for Justice weren't involved. And it's very sad. And it was an open reading at, well, the Black Seed Writers, James Parker's, that's been going on for over a decade. The most mentally ill people in the room came up to me because my voice kind of broke at the end when it was sad. So here it goes. Lawyer in the dust. Also, it's for the Princeton intern. Okay. She's from Alabama. This is Louisiana. Lawyer in the death belt, East Texas through the South. Billy Southern died age 45. He was finally able to free Albert Woodfox, one of the Angola 3 Black Panthers, falsely accused of murdering a prison guard. His widow said the Angola 3 did not murder her mate. But Albert Woodfox, freed after 44 years, unjustly imprisoned. Billy Southern was 1 year old when the Angola 3 were unjustly imprisoned, and he died at 45 after getting Albert free. So for over 40 years, Albert was in solitary. The solitary cells had bars on one side, allowing Albert to teach a fellow solitary prisoner to read. Albert Woodfox's mother could only write her signature. Another of the Angola 3, Herbert Wallace, died of liver cancer within days of release. A judge had threatened to imprison the warden unless Herman was released and died. Angola, Louisiana is an 18,000-acre former slave plantation. Over 6,000 men are crowded there. The former death row, since the death penalty was abolished, it was used to gas the prisoners in solitary. The death row building is also being used to house teenagers with juvenile cases who were escaping in the community. Robert King is the only survivor of the Angola 3. After 29 years in solitary, the only one still alive. Albert Woodfox died age 75 of COVID after having been released 6 years after the 44 years. Albert had looked for strength to Nelson Mandela, who was unjustly imprisoned for 27 years. If a cause is noble, one can carry the weight of the world. So that's where it used to end. Artists for Justice had been awarded a grant and was filming Angola, Louisiana, the 18,000-acre former slave plantation with about 6,000 prisoners. Artists for Justice, their filming was shut down by the prison authorities for its direction, perhaps. However, with 6,000 or so prisoners, Angola had its own television station staffed by prisoners and continued to film while Artists for Justice were stopped. So the prisoners' film was shortlisted for Academy Award. The title is Angola, Do You Hear Us? Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. I'd like to bring you now to Mr. Bill Lewis.
Me? This Bill Lewis?
Last I checked.
Okay, well, there are other Bill Lewises in the world. You might have met one of them. I don't know. So okay, I'm just checking. I've got work going on outside, so it gets noisy. So this one is for one of you, one of us right here. Oh. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do it. He's back on the saw. So why don't I go later?
Okay. All right, then. Let us go next to, who do we want to go next to? Okay, let's go to Mr. Robert Fleming, the man partially responsible, well, mostly responsible for tonight's feature. Entirely responsible? I did press a button. I sent the wrong link. You know, I get some credit. Okay, Mr. Robert Fleming. I had the initiative of putting up the share screen. So you are all.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Robert Fleming, a visual poet from Lewis, Delaware. I will be doing a tribute to our season of the summer. My first two graphic arts are a series which were inspired by picking two objects which could be two colors, either yellow or orange. This is the first one. My two objects are a tractor and the sun. This one is called Track Sun, where I was showing a tractor moving a ball of the sun. And the background is orange, which is the contrasting color to yellow. Here is the companion piece, which is called Suncore, where I'm having the sun push the tractor, and then the background is the opposite color, which is yellow. This is a still life from the movie From Here to Eternity, which is very passionate. And I created a visual image where I was trying to catch the passion of summer. This is called Summer Love to Eternity. And one of the features that I used is in the software package Canva, where you can make letters circular. So for example, under the letter S on the left side, sandburn, Anburn is circular. And on the upper right, also Loveburn is circular. This is a combination of a graphic image and a one-line poem called A Monostitch. It's actually nine words. And I'm also using that circular capability for letters in Canva. Two tongues lick peanut butter ice cream, lick each other. This next one was inspired by the musical and movie Grease. It is a digital collage called All the Way. The starting point for doing a collage is picking the background, which everything will be on it. And one of the best elements of it is at the front, the cigarettes, which are on a diagonal, which give the feeling of depth to the image. This is the last one. It is imagining that a baby would be delivered by the ocean to the sea. It's called Surf Birth at Marina Beach, California. So thank you for letting me share a tribute to our current season, the summer. And I want to continue to thank Chad for welcoming the writers from Old Scratch Press to Stone Soup.
The baby image reminds me of a series of poems people were doing back at Stone Soup in the early 2000s, which was Stevie Subrizi came out with a poem called Seaweed Baby, and that was followed by other people doing a robot seaweed baby, zombie seaweed baby. You look up Seaweed Baby and Stone Soup online, you'll get some interesting combinations. So that was a nice little flashback piece for me. Up next, we have author, poet, publisher, and I believe candidate for poet laureate as recently and back in New Mexico. Let's welcome up Red Our Green Books mastermind, Marissa Prada. Uh-oh. Let's all right, Marissa might be indisposed. So Bill, are you ready now? Or did he disappear all of a sudden? He disappeared.
No, I will not be ready for a while. Too much
Oh
work
my.
outside, too much noise.
Oh, okay. What do we have next? Let's go now to Mr. James Van Looy. Poet, Stone Soup regular for many years and columnist for Oddball Magazine. His poem column, It's All One Thing, is published every Thursday at 11 o'clock at oddballmagazine.com.
Okay. So I have a poem here called Pilgrimage Home. Pilgrimage Home. A miracle of human invention, the endless knot of our creation, Gordian knot, seamless garment, lava stewed, water resistant cement that hardens stronger than stronger in the very depths, harder the longer it sets itself. Foundation for structure long gone that still stands to lecture us on all our Horatio Alger defections, our long, slow, ponderous reflections of what appeared all by itself, these ways to be lined up on the shelf, ready for what needs and wants to be. Gilgamesh become old man of the sea, Odysseus touring Mediterranean islands, St. Cuthbert, pilgrim in the highlands, the cups and rings triple, double, spiral, way we walk through all this trouble. And here's a quick song. You gotta have heart. All you really need is heart. When the odds are saying you'll never win, that's when the grin should start. You've gotta have hope. Mustn't sit around and hope nothing half as bad as it may appear. Wait till next year and hope when your luck is batting zero. Get your chin up off the floor. Mister, you can be a hero. You can open any door. There's nothing to it but to do it. Miles and miles and miles of heart. You've gotta have heart. Oh, it's fine to be a genius, of course, but keep that old horse before the cart. You've gotta have heart. Miles and miles and miles of heart. First, you've gotta have heart. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Getting closer to the end. We're joined by Renee Ford, and I was wondering if she'd be interested in reading tonight. It's good to have you on for I believe is the first time ever on Stone Soup.
So Renee is a friend of mine coming to just take in the reading.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my bad. Well, welcome and appreciate you listening. Let's do a little musical interlude. Ethan's prepping himself. He's done the math. He knows what is what. Marissa, if you're able to read, let me know in the chat. Otherwise, we'll go with our musical interlude before the feature with Mr. Mackler.
Does anyone else besides me want a close-up of Ethan's calluses? I just imagine going across those strings like that. There we go. There we go. Love it. Love it.
Thank you so much, Ethan, and thanks in advance for the poet who'll be closing out this half of the open mic, if it is going to be half. Maybe Marissa and Bill will read later, but for now, we have a feature who's been waiting patiently and listening to everyone's work, and I want to make sure we get a good dose of her work. But before we do that, let's close out this open mic slot with Rich Boucher, who did an amazing feature earlier this year, and you should check out his book, All of This Candy Belongs to Me, which is coming up on my reading list for the summer.
Thank you so much for that, Chad. I really appreciate that. I don't think I've ever said this to you, but I love that you share a last name with one of my favorite broadcasters growing up in New England, Mark Perreno from WBCN. So this is this poem, completely separate topic. This poem is called All of the Furniture in Heaven is Made Out of Solid Gold. The first Google search we were able to find was which kind of 38 caliber handgun makes for the best suicide, with Smith & Wesson at the top of all the most trusted lists in the nation, in the country, in America, in the remains of the former United States. Even if you don't think so, a great many things are beautiful. Put on some romantic music, the sort of sounds best for lovemaking, and keep the torches nice and low. Maybe light some Nag Champa, definitely some warm scented candles all throughout the last bedroom you'll ever have. Pick up the pistol and hold it just right. Savor the heft and thrill to the cold steel as it enters your mouth, as you make it enter your mouth. Enter your own mouth with this pistol you picked out so thoughtfully. Turn the muzzle around in your mouth. Seduce the conclusion with a teasing tongue, the wood of the grip warming to the idea of you. Everyone wants to see you drool and moan, especially this weapon that's waited for you all this time, all these years, all those grades in school, all those memories one after another. In high school, I knew a sweet girl who shot herself one morning. She lived only a few blocks away. I heard the distant shot as I got ready for school, but I didn't know the meaning of that sound until the 8:30 PA speaker told us innocence was over. I never imagined then that my future would contain days when I'd think maybe Deanna had the right idea after all. Embrace the thought of all this nonsense ending, seduce the conclusion, fascinate upon a final thing. What's it going to feel like after you do it? After your desperate finger pulls the trigger? Something smells like smoke in the darkening woods after an afternoon rain, or maybe myrrh. You won't even have the time to feel any pain, just a black sound, louder than any scream you ever heard in a bad dream. And then what? And then what? I think the next thing you see after you die is whatever the last dream you had was, but on an endless repeat. And I'll wager that it feels like you're aware that you're dreaming, like in the last 8 or 9 minutes before you normally wake up. And whether or not you want to wake up now, you finally understand that there is no more waking up for you. And the lighting is all wrong, or the lighting is exactly right, depending upon whatever fate has in store. Whatever fate has on sale at the moment, the seasonal special pricing, the buy one life and get one free, the lifetime guarantee, and all of the furniture in heaven, if that's what happens next, if that even makes sense, if that's what you want to call it, is made out of solid gold. Sharp corners and flat surfaces beautiful everywhere. Every couch, lounge chair, and bed made out of this breathtaking and precious cold metal. And you get to lie down on it for all of the rest of time if you want, if you can stand it. All the while, the small white clouds in the pretty blue sky above you can't hear a word you say and will never see you. Relax. All is as it should be. Just relax and remember the times when you were loved for a little while. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. And now it gives me great pleasure to segue. Again, if there's poets who want to read, please let me know in the chat after the feature. I know some people have been having some technical difficulties. We've lost, I think, 2 poets to those difficulties. Richard Spizak had to leave. He told me via Facebook that he's been having an erratic internet connection. And Marianne Honecker, I hope, is well. But for the moment, it's time to focus on our featured poet tonight as we scratch that itch again for July. And hopefully more announcements will be coming. I still am accepting submissions for the Stone's Throw issue of Unalive the Algorithm. That's going to be coming up, and hopefully I'll be able to unveil a cover as drawn / perhaps painted and colored again by David House, who wants to outdo his cover from the last issue. And more to be announced, and hopefully more submission opportunities from ourselves here at Stone Soup and elsewhere to be announced tomorrow as well around 4 o'clock. Because I've been away and prepping to be away, I haven't posted any notices in recent weeks, but hopefully I'll be able to resume. Our feature for tonight is Gabby Gilliam. Her boilerplate is short and sweet. I'm very glad to be introduced to her via the old Scratch Gang and particularly Robert Fleming. Gabby Gilliam, whose website is linked via the Stone Soup website at stonesoupoetry.blogspot.com, is a writer, teacher, and a mom. She lives in the District of Columbia area with her husband and son. She is a founder of Old Scratch Press, which helped release her first chapbook, No Ocean to Spit Me Out, in June of 2024. An anthologized and multiply published poet, her book is also has the honor of being nominated for the National Book Award in Poetry. She's also written fiction online and elsewhere. And I'm very excited to introduce you all, thanks to Robert again, to her work. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together 40, 50 times, virtually, pantomimally, vocally, or otherwise, for Gabby Gilliam.
Thank you all, and thank you, Robert, for connecting me with Chad, and thank you, Chad, for letting me be here. And also thank you guys for all of the amazing stuff that you have shared tonight. I wasn't expecting to be serenaded and the lovely musical interludes, so it's been kind of amazing. So thank you. So my chapbook deals a lot with upstate New York, where my parents were born and grew up. And so I figured I would start with the opening poem from the collection. It's called Visiting the North Country. I dream of the Adirondacks, rubbery brine of cheese curd chewed on the shores of Stillwater Reservoir, Krogan bologna on crackers, the unexpected tug on my line, yellow perch slick as memory, caught and released. And we did a lot of talking about wild berries earlier, which I did not know we were going to do, but it makes this poem fit very well with that. This is called Blackberry Wine. You stumble through the woods, crimson-fingered, clothes-stained, covered entirely in dark juice. Your hands are scratched and bleeding, both blood and juice running toward elbows. You tenderly pick one more plump, ripe blackberry, place it in the bowl pinned between your hip and elbow. When you get home, you pour the berries into the tub, brutally mash them into little bits, take all the juice from them you can. I've seen a winemaking gone bad all over the walls and floor of your small bathroom, the bathtub littered with particles of stem and berries. I've tasted the results of a winemaking that hasn't gone bad, felt it burn all the way down. The glass jug was heavy and smelled nothing like berries, tasted nothing like berries. My throat burned for hours. So that poem was about my paternal grandfather. So I feel like I should read this one about my maternal grandfather. It's called Grandpa Russ. He rose with the sun, and dinner called him home. Thin gray hair sprinkled with bits of hay and dirt, favorite pipe threatening to fall through threadbare pocket, faded red suspenders resting limply on the thighs of dark olive pants, stained and covered in dirt, coarse hands blackened from hours spent with crops. He served us sweet corn from a field that he harvested with his own hands, fried zucchini, patty pan and yellow squash grown in the soil of his backyard garden. There was fresh milk coaxed into a milk can by his hands and brought home, along with the smell of the cows and the hay and the mud on his boots, which he placed outside the front door so he wouldn't track work into the house. The next poem I'm going to read is a high bun. And if you don't know what a high bun is, it's a mix of haiku and prose. This is called Going to Seed. This overgrown field smells like autumn afternoons, homework forgotten, high golden grass, drinks waning sunlight, rotten crab apples crushed underfoot, the crunch of gravel beneath your tires as you snake down the long driveway, elbow propped out of your open window. Golden field stretches, shadows lengthening with time, gradual forest. Your truck idle in the driveway, your ashes in a box on a shelf where the wind can't rustle your branches. And I stand alone in this new field, 100 miles from that old wildness. I crack a milkweed pod with my hands, breathe the seeds to find their own fertile earth. First Communion. I expected a burst of happiness on my tongue, the tingle of salvation, as transubstantiated flesh tickled its way down my throat, but only found the whisper of crisp robes and a stale wafer, which melted into paste and tasted nothing like peace. I would have coughed to clear it from my mouth or spit it out if Jesus hadn't been watching from his crucifix, open wounds oozing with forgiveness. The next poem I'm going to read is where the chapbook gets its name from. It's called No Ocean Spit Me Out. You were born in a burst of sea foam, a pearl rising from sand, salt-kissed and beautiful. I was born in upstate New York. No, further north than that. Snow-kissed fingers and toes, never able to get warm. Your father wielded lightning, his fury immortal. My father wielded weed whackers and grill tongs, his anger dull sparks that failed to ignite, his love enduring beyond the limits of his mortality. Did Zeus ever tuck you in? Ignore the flashlight clutched beneath your sheets so you could read after lights out? Did he sing old gospel songs into the darkness while your eyelids grew heavy? Or did he only turn maidens into cows? Thank you. There are a lot of poems in here about my dad. The next one is also going to be a poem about my dad. It first appeared in The Poeming Pigeon from the Poetry Box, and it's called My Apologies, Dad. The marbled stumps of graves poke out of overgrown grass, an army of gray thumbs in perfect, steadfast formation. We didn't open the windows or stop the clocks when you died. I hold my breath until we pass the final row to avoid catching my death or angering an envious spirit with my functional lungs, my beating heart, my tightly pressed lips. I just learned you're supposed to tuck thumbs into fists while passing a cemetery to protect your parents. I never knew. So many ways I failed to protect you. The next poem is going to actually be about my mom. She promised us each a quilt. The pain in my mother's wrists doesn't discriminate, throbbing within taut tissue as she pulls another stretch of quilt across the sewing machine's arm. Since my father's funeral, she has attacked her fabric stash, a torrent of stitches to distract her from his absence. She lets his loss pool in the shadows at her feet, nudges it aside to press the pedal as she feeds pinned squares to the needle. When the sun dips below the tree line, she leans over to turn on the light. All right, I'm going to read one more from the chat book, and then I'm going to read poems from some other places. This one is called My Morning Run Grants Absolution in Every Breath. I clutch at laces like rosary beads, taut knots instead of Hail Marys. Let my soul's whisper penance to the pavement, while crisp autumn sunlight presses deliverance into my skin. The next poem I'm going to read is actually one of the first ones I ever had published. It was published in the now defunct Fredericksburg Literary and Art Review. It is called Surviving the Pause. Trapped in a purgatory of tuna casseroles and bitter coffee that sits untouched on mismatched china, a culinary orbit at your bedside. We talk spices and bake times to distract our ears from the sound of your labored breathing. You lay tangled in sheets and wires, feebly fighting to linger even now. I reach for a mug to replace the limpness of your hands. The coffee is cold. I am going to read one that is actually in my chat book, and I'm going to read it out here. It's called Act of Contrition. I bruised my knees, begging for your forgiveness, counted plastic beads as I repeated the prayers, a priest's prescription for penance of my childhood sins. How many Hail Marys would I get now that I use my knees for a different type of service? Can Our Lady of Peace offer an olive branch, or is my mouth too soiled to hold absolution on my tongue? This poem was actually inspired by a Jackson Pollock painting called Blue Poles, and it's called Everything's on Fire. If I close my eyes, all I can see is the world burning, flames dancing on eyelids like fresh spring sunlight. But every time I blink, there are more trees blackened by forest fires, a barren battalion of stalwart trunks primed for a potent wind. Collecting artificial parts. It starts with a mouthful of blood, gums swollen and sore, platelet count too low for her body to form a clot. They insert a PICC line in her chest, direct access to bright blue veins like wires that have forgotten how to spark. Chemical conflations travel through tubes. azacitidine, Decadrol, vincristine, alphabet soup pumping through PVC. Bruises blossom on thighs, on back, on fingertips. They siphon out tainted blood, scrape her bones free of rotten marrow, inject someone else's stem cells to take its place. She wants to scream until her face is blue as her mottled skin, but her lungs are as infected as her blood. So she tucks her rage under a rib, promises to release it once she reaches open air. Both that poem and the one I'm about to read next were both written for my childhood friend as she was battling leukemia. And this poem originally appeared in One Art. It's called What We Can Gather. I can see you trying so hard to look happy, clenching your jaw when you smile, grimacing at the pressure on your loose teeth, willing yourself to have fun. Your dinner of pills boils in your stomach. But you dragged yourself out of your house to sit with me on this sofa. Blue jays will weigh nuts, comparing heft before filling beak with the largest available meal. The way you weigh options, which last memories you want to take with you, what smiles to leave behind for us. So hungry for more time with you, our mouths filled with as many minutes as we can carry. You, me, and Twinings. Your memory clings to me like spiderweb. I stumble blindly into sticky strands, afraid to let it linger. I clutch and claw, trying to free myself. But what if I stilled my panicked fingers, let myself calmly back into the house, brewed a cup of tea, and let your memory steep? Let it keep me company on the sofa as I sipped my steaming mug, careful not to burn my tongue. When a woman reaches supernova. Pressure squeezed into the tiny space the world allows, the weight of labels crushing from all sides. Her nuclear core burns. A new pressure builds, resists the gravity of expectation. Her fury consumes her fuel too quickly, tips the balance of that gravity and her fire until she collapses. Her surface reaches event horizon. Time stands still. Gravity's influence eclipses her completely. Not even light can escape. This poem was inspired by a poem by Natalie Diaz. And it's called You Are Still Everywhere I Look. I do my grief work at the kitchen sink, scrub by and from memory, scour burnt eggs from stainless steel. I do my grief work with bony knees pressed to hardwood floors. Chapped fingers clutch the damp rag. I wash your memory from the board by hand. I do my grief work atop faded area rugs, attack the lingering stale cigarillo smoke with the acrid scent of bleach, drown the echoes of your gravelly voice with the whir of the Dyson. Let it suck up what I've shed, what I'm too weak to gather. I love to play with science and mathematic terms and poetry. And this poem was actually inspired by reading a scientific article. It's called Quantum Physics Proves There's No Such Thing as Nothing. Instead, there is quantum foam, particles blinking into existence only to blink back out. And as someone fallen from the wagon of Catholicism, this discovered range of energies feels like embracing reincarnation, proof that your energy, once trapped beneath layers of living cells, burst free from your withered shell, radiating into new containers whose measurements are both imprecise and perfect. Your sudden nothingness, actually an infinite possibility. Even death can become a cliche. after Edwidge Danticat. What if I will the gaping void to relinquish its darkness? What if I choose to fill this pit with fuchsia, line its rough edge with tangerine and crimson? What if, instead of an angry tide pulling me deeper beneath the surface, I let you wash over me like a sunset, your memory so bright it leaves golden spots dancing across my closed eyelids, my skin warm to the touch? The next poem first appeared in Verse Virtual. It's called Don't Let Them Hold Your Breath Hostage. Women have evolved beyond bitter silence. Generations of lips pressed closed, tongues heavy and bloated with a kaleidoscope of things unspoken, ready to release their ancient breath. Women have cultivated patience, raising generations of daughters who found keys to pry open the locked jaws and loosened tongues to reveal the toughened skin of their mothers' opened mouths, words gritted in teeth like coarse sand. And I have one more for you tonight that actually appeared in the last issue of Instant Noodles, and it is called Contraction. After hours of flesh seething, muscles finally relaxed, and I cradled a fresh universe in my arms, puckered face already rooting for food. My world imploded, contracting, until nothing existed but this one tiny fist, raised at the audacity of the air to be so dry, the lights to be so bright, the scream that replaced the rhythm of my familiar heartbeat. And I traced constellations across freckled skin as I eased into a new center of gravity. Thank you, guys.
What an excellent feature. Thank you very much, Gabby. I don't
Poetry
know
in
if
a
you saw it.
physics, poetry in
Yeah.
a physics class. That was amazing.
hmm I don't know if you could see it in the chat, Gabby, but I put in there just to underscore it. I loved that when I hear that somebody else gets how autumn sunlight has a crispness to it that that really struck a chord with me. So thank you for that and for your feature.
Thank you.
That was incredibly impressive, and it's a good indicator of Old Scratch Press in itself. We've had 3 features, each one showing a very distinctive style that you can't really, it's, this is a group of friends and colleagues, but it's definitely not the same schools of poetry, which makes it all the more exciting. And I don't know what I'm gonna get from the next Old Scratch Press reader, but I'm always going to look forward to it. So it's a testament to the authors and to the publishers as well in finding diverse work. So very impressed with that. And I just ordered the book, Gabby, and I can't wait to read it and also to recommend everyone else grab it when I post the video tomorrow. You working on anything else? A more fuller length collection?
I'm trying. I am really trying to not have one that's just all dead dad poems. But I have a lot of those right now. So I'm trying to find something that has more of a balance than that. So hopefully, but it probably won't be anytime soon.
Well, wish you luck with that. And I'm sure whatever the end result is, it's going to hopefully come naturally to you. And we'll definitely have you back.
Can I
I'd
ask
love
a question of the feature?
Go
Sure.
ahead.
Yeah. So Gabby, what part of the Mid-Atlantic are you from? I get the connection with Delaware. I had once lived in Delaware for a number of years. I'm just curious what the area you're hailing from.
So currently, I'm in North Potomac, Maryland, which is in Montgomery County. I grew up in King George, Virginia, which is only
Okay.
like an hour and a half from here. But until I was 4, I lived in upstate New York. My grandparents' house is as far from New York City as I am. So They're like they were tippy top up there. So out in the middle
Gotcha.
of nowhere. It's like a whole other country up there.
I spent a number of years and I ran an open mic and poetry slam for a good handful of years, living in Newark, Delaware, and right by the university, not too far from Elkton, Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah. Small world.
It is a small world.
Well, thank you so much for your wonderful feature. We usually end at this point, but we've been having some difficulty getting some people people have been having difficulty signing in, and people have had difficulty being heard. I'd love to give one or two of those poets a shot if they're still willing. And I would love to offer that to Bill first, who's made his face seen, and hopefully he's quieted down all the birds and the chickens in the back to have him resume his poetry.
You can probably hear the hammering behind me. I have trouble hearing you at all sometimes, so we'll just have to let this one go by.
Sorry to hear that, Bill. Richard Spizak, who I think has tried to come on and sign in like a record 9 times. A, for effort and persistence, and let's have you close out unless Marissa wants to read, and I think she's bowing out for today. So, but thanks to everyone who has read and who has been here as long as they can muster connections or no to hear Gabby read tonight. But we'll close out with Richard, who's been doing some wonderful illustration work for a series of essays, an ethical treatise by Stephen David Joseph Sills over at Oddball Magazine. And Richard's been providing the artwork based on those essays. So thanks to him again. And let's have you talk, sir.
Well, thank you so much. I'm very much, it's very much worth it to keep trying to get into this fine group of people. Wonderful set, Gabby. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I fancy I try to write a science poem or two myself. So my enthusiasm is boundless. But I'm going to start with philosophy today. This is called My Favorite Philosopher. My favorite philosopher is Lao Tzu. You might be thinking, Lao who? The simplicity of his thinking appeals to me. It requires very little belief, as well you might see. The local tribe in the place where I was born prefers a religion that I came to spurn. It's not that it's foolish. It's not that it's dumb. Despite how long practice, they just don't seem to get how it's done. He references water and finds wisdom there, yet his worshippers find no necessity to bind him to a chair. The knowledge you need you will find within. It's nothing about worshiping at all, the guy like him. Letting go with Lao Tzu is an important theme, and all this maintaining of formalities and imposing of schemes does little more for us than stifling our dreams. One of his favorite stories he explains very well is the dream of butterfly you'll hear tell. He proposes that somehow in this spell, he dreams he's a butterfly, but awake, he's a man. In the end, which is realer? On which foot does he stand? Each moment of perception has something to tell. To contend one's realer seems pointless as well. Here's an example of his sort of teaching. You'll see in an instant the goal that he's reaching. If you want to become whole, let yourself be partial. If you want to become straight, let yourself be crooked. If you want to become full, let yourself be empty. If you want to be reborn, let yourself die. If you want to be given everything, give everything up. This sort of elegant thinking, it seems, makes most expectations a part of the schemes. The examples he's left us in fable and guide, all that pretentious striving can be left by the side. Simplicity, silence, listening within. You're always in church divinity and simplicity with no banners to spin. Another example of his wisdom sheds much light. I urge you, give a listen. You could get it right. Kindness in words creates confidence. Kindness in thinking creates profoundness. Kindness in giving creates love. I've read many translations of books of wisdom, and very much goodness have I found within them. And the simple train of Lao Tzu's thinking gives me guidance and simple wisdom for living. I first saw the word Zen as a little child. My gentle Uncle Gene had several books with it. He was gentle and mild, a man of the world, a ham operator, globally connected. To him, it was gold. He seems somehow resurrected. Although I've read widely in religion over the years, the inclusivity that brought me to this decision, I've read from the Bible, the Koran and such. I've read from Ramayana and the Upanishads much. I've read from Egyptian and Tibetan books of the dead, learned so much wisdom, and ultimately sheds much light you might find the celestial and divine. In the simplicity of Zen, I sense much refined. Take any road, I urge you, my chum, with elaborate ritual or in silence you come. To the simplest truths you'll find when you come. You'll find me, my friend, here and now, in the flowing, clean river of Zen. The wise man is one who knows what he does not know. All streams flow to the sea because it's lower than they are. Humility gives it its power. This next one is called A Sudden Outbreak. A sudden outbreak of good judgment, it seems, is far better than even some dreams. It amazed them all from the corner to call a sudden outbreak of courtesy and tolerance. Right over the backyard fence. In the streets of the town and by gum all around, courtesy grew. It could happen to you. Generosity grew ferociously, and they vied and they strived to be nice. It would not hide, even shared their lemonade ice. Invited friends over to dine, because after all, there was time. Even some time for sparkling wine. Met the neighbors next door, pushed chairs off the floor, made room for dancing. Even their horses and pretty kitties were prancing. There were block parties where no one got hot. Even Harry said sorry. All the girls and the boys all shared their favorite toys. No one would scold, not the young, not the old. They needed no urging from the nurse or the surgeon. Walk on my grass. They put up signs so it would last. Better than brothers, even uncles and cousins treated each other like kin. It was, in fact, just exactly the way how we'll win. Just a little more care from in here, out there, it was clear. Holding as we do all that life is dear, so it would hopefully appear. Down the street it was neat. Friendships grew, by golly, I even met you. And your neighbor Sally, who lives down the hill and across the alley. And then this last one is my science poem for the evening. It's called Relief. In Goethe's Metamorphosis of Plants at the end of the 18th century, he redefined the meaning of a plant, you see. The organs of vegetating and flowering plant, though seemingly dissimilar, all originate from a single organ, namely the leaf. During the evolutionary history of land plants, true leaves developed, and who said they can't? They became a major location for photosynthesis and transpiration, harvesting energy from the sun and taking carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Away they run with very little fear. Photosynthesis takes place in chloroplasts, special organelles. Some said they would never last. These chloroplasts contain pigment that absorbs the sun and transforms CO2 into organic compounds on the run. As a byproduct, the plants release water vapor and O2. If you were in their position, you probably would too. The scientists agree that SAM, shoot, apical, meristem, gives rise to all plants above ground organs without and within, while cells of the central zone hold undifferentiated cells who store together and never alone. They acquire a determinate identity when they leave the vicinity. Early steps of leaf development lend themselves to mythic retellement. Leaf primordia forms on the flanks of the SAM, the shoot apical meristem in particular. They give rise to all the above ground organs of plants' young life, however easy or confounded in strife. While the cells in the central zone remain undifferentiated, just like when they were born or reincarnated. Cells of the peripheral zone acquire an identity, whether surrounded by happy friends or sarcastic frenemies. These generate lateral appendages following the three-axis rule of collateral sandwiches. The longitudinal axis demarcates basal and apical regions. The dorsoventral axis defines abaxial polarity with no betrayal of vertical anti-gravity hilarity. And the mediolateral axis drives expansion and prevents vertical collapsement. At maturity, a typical leaf is made of stalk that connects the blade as it's made. The stem with gravity is forced to contend. The epidermal provides the boundary within which cells are held. The mesophyll performs the photosynthesis, as we all know well. And the vasculature provides the in and the outdoor for respiration and more. Water, nutrients, and photosynthesis. Isn't that wonderful? And it makes the leaf great. And that, my friends, is the synthesis.
Very lovely, Richard. I'm so appreciative of your tenacity. I'm glad we could close out with you. I'm so glad we could resume the open mic gatherings with Gabby. Get another round of applause for her. Give yourselves a round of applause. Put your hands together as much as you see fit. There'll be more poetry announcements hopefully coming in the next couple of days. I've got the gumption to introduce some poets who have never been here before. one or two people who become kind of colleagues to me online via Twitter and elsewhere that sometimes I'll share their work, sometimes I don't. But we don't cross on Facebook, we cross everywhere else. So it would be great if, and one of them is coming out with a brand new book. So if I can get them in for August, I think that would be fantastic. More will be announced. I appreciate all your support. I appreciate Gabby's support. I appreciate Old Scratch Press, and I'm completing the whole set. I'm completing. I have the whole collection now. Do they mark them as first printings, or is Amazon even doing that anymore? Screw it. I'm glad I have the books. I'm glad I'm getting the books. And thank you all for being here today. Thanks to Gabby for featuring. Thanks to Robert for being the orchestrator of all this and being a press's prime promoter. Because that is always, that promoting anything is always tough to do. And I appreciate anyone who puts in the effort and sacrifices their time to elevate the works of others. It's work. It's effort for me to even just post the books I read during my little summer break. It makes me sweat. So it's an extra effort that I appreciate from everyone. More announcements will be coming. Check out the video for this tomorrow, hopefully between the time of 8 and 9. And definitely share. And I will also be sharing the link to the sharing a link to the book and all the posts I do for tomorrow. So if you have not gotten the link from Robert Fleming, tomorrow again will be tomorrow morning we'll have the links everywhere. So thank you guys very much for that. It's time for the obligatory wave. I'm sure you were primed on that, Gabby. Yep. Everyone's been trained and primed well. Thank you, Jan. I always love when she runs in at the last minute to do the wave. Thank you guys very much. And I appreciate you guys coming in. Up next, well, more will be announced. Have yourselves a great rest of the week. By all means, stay cool for this week. I know it's got to cool down a little bit, but -2 degrees after 100-degree day today is might not feel like much, but do what you guys can to survive. Take care of yourselves. Take care of someone else if you can, and we'll talk to you soon. Or I can just say the show's over. We see you next time. Have a good night, everyone.